Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Savina and welcome to our discussion of the use of AI in deep tech and health tech. I'll let everyone do a brief introduction themselves, starting with Mariam.
Sure. Well, I kind of introduced myself, but yes, I work for InterSystems corporate venture funds. I come from the background of working directly in digital health and biotech startups, and now on the investment side.
Hi, I'm Avi. I have a background in longevity biology. It's been a long road, about 18 years. Did the PhD on this subject, then had a spin-out, which was a gene therapy company, is a gene therapy company in clinical trials, and then slowly, gradually moving towards a more consumer focus where we are doing concierge clinic and now digital twin as well. So a long road, but hopefully towards actually solving longevity.
Hi everyone, I'm Lluna Gallego. I'm CEO and co-founder of Vector Bioscience Cambridge, and we are a spin-out from the University of Cambridge with a drug delivery system, a novel one, so first in class.
All right, amazing. So let's kick this forward and let's explore what's real in AI today, how it's funded, deployed, challenges, and opportunities that lie ahead of us. So Avi, let's kick this off with you in the use of real-world AI in healthcare. What are the most promising AI applications actually being deployed today, not just researched, and how do you think they're going to transform the healthcare landscape?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of examples, and really, I mean, again, anybody can open the news and see that Kaiser Permanente is deploying fastest deployment of AI Scribe to 24,000 physicians earlier this year. And the latest report showing that it saves about an hour. And then there is Advocate Health's AI deployment, which is saving around 63,000 patient diagnoses, as in early diagnosis or capturing disease. These are great. I mean, they are working fantastic. But in terms of Model T and Henry Ford, this is faster horses rather than actually automobiles. So the healthcare industry is a $4 trillion industry, out of which less than 3% of that money is spent in prevention. So we're building currently as an industry a GPS for navigating only while you are inside a traffic jam. That is completely bonkers. So there is a huge room to grow, and where the innovation is actually happening, I think, is in the preclinical and early clinical stage. So the first drug that is fully synthesized using machine learning and generative AI is currently in phase 2 trials. And there are many coming down the pipeline. And what you see in these AI models is that, at least in phase 1, they have more than double the success rate. It's a small sample size, but it's quite a brilliant sample size. So I would always, to point that question, I would always point out that I think the AI that is being deployed right now, whether it's in the NHS or in other systems, are just kind of putting patches on a problematic system itself rather than actually innovation. And so this market has not even begun. There is so much opportunity to link those two, the preclinical early stage diagnostics with the interventions. So you can have amazing diagnostics being captured in London, matching up to these innovations that are happening in Boston, therapeutic innovations, and kind of combining those two, which is what we're trying to do with the digital twin layers. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
Now, that's amazing. Thank you, Avi. And to add on to that, Lluna, from your perspective, how do you think AI is being used in a practical, value-adding way in healthcare today?
Well, as the co-founder of Vector and also the co-founder of the Cambridge Female Founders Network, I've been exposed to different startup and spin-out companies working with AI. And I see two different types. And one is more on the marvelous and amazing results. And the others are trying to use AI and actually using AI and machine learning as practical tools for solutions. I see that as a clear difference. And the key question is, how what question are we trying to solve with these AI applications, and how can we make it practical? So how can we tie it on, and that probably touches on your point as well, connecting not just the AI expertise, but also the experts in the field. So that could be doctors, clinicians, hospitals, whoever, the key players that are actually going to use those tools. So, and I think that goes back to something that you said about innovation. Those two have to be together, AI and the expert and the knowledge, and also the actual use of the end product or the whatever it is, the product or the service. So I think I would connect, to answer your question, I would connect the AI, but with the experts and the knowledge that is going to have a real impact in patients or clinicians.
Right. Thank you, Lluna. So we've heard from the founders, Mariam. As an investor and someone also very much embedded in the enterprise healthcare ecosystem, what kinds of AI use cases do you see already working in hospitals or large healthcare systems?
Sure. I would like to second Avi's point on ambient AI scribing technology. In 2025 alone, already more than 1 billion was poured by VCs into companies that are building in this space. There was a study in the US, though, that showed that more than 70% of doctors use it, but only 40% actually find that it helps them save the time. So, you know, it's still to prove its ROI, but it is one of the most established use cases so far. However, EHRs like Athena Health or Oracle Health have already introduced the in-house solutions for that. Now we know that Epic is due to release its own AI scribe sometime in 2026, and Epic is 42% of the market in the US. So the landscape is going to change in this use case, and companies like Saki, Breach, Microsoft-owned Nuance, they're already introducing expanding their product horizontally, introducing prior authorization, patient summaries, RCM, etc. So it is the use case that I think we all well know about. Something else that we find exciting is conversational AI mimicking very low risk, time-consuming decisions like call centers. And in the UK, we've talked to a couple of startups, both in primary and secondary care, that are successfully implementing those solutions. Just today, I got off the call with a founder who is doing something similar in the MENA region. So again, I do believe that the ROI is quite high here. We're also super excited about solutions in radiology for triage, for analysis. This is something that needs to be, in most cases, regulated. So obviously, go-to-market is maybe delayed here, but we also do see solutions in this sector sort of every week. So yeah, I would say these two.
All right, thank you. And I think that can bring us nicely to speaking a little bit more about evaluating and funding in AI. Mariam, again, I'm going to kick it off with you. From your position at a corporate venture arm, how do you think about supporting AI and health tech startups? What do you think actually makes a partnership valuable strategically for both sides? And obviously, when we speak about this, we don't just look at the funding perspective. We look at data, domain expertise, or integration opportunities. When startups come to CVCs like yours, how can they see a value add to that?
I would like to start by saying that every CVC model is super different. And therefore, there is a unique approach. There is a very different strategic interest here. For example, I mentioned before that we provide a continuum of care. So what that means is we start with hackathons. We have an accelerator that is equity-free. It's free of charge as well. That has a network of hospitals. It has also AstraZeneca, GSK, labs who are allowing companies to potentially pilot their solutions. So that's something valuable that we give back to founders. And at the corporate venture fund, we start with a non-dilutive grant. Very founder-friendly in the sense that you don't have to commit to anything. You don't have to in the sense of purchasing the license. There are no IP claims, there are no rigid timelines. It is something to test the technical and strategic fit. Yes, it does delay the pathway to getting an equity investment because that's something that we do next. But the grant is the prerequisite because, for example, we only invest in our partners. So that's something that was at the core of InterSystems as the company. We were founded in 1978, so we've been on the market for quite a while. And how we managed to grow to our size is essentially partnering with small solutions early and growing with them. We're mostly middleware solutions, so our success is our customer success, and probably that's why a lot of you wondered, what is this company and what does it do? Also, because we have hospitals, labs, research centers as our customers or partners, insurance companies as well, we don't serve as a direct bridge for founders to approach them, but it does happen. And some of the perks that we provide would be going to conferences. We're at HIMSS, we're at Health US, Health Europe. We want to support partners because their success defines our success, right, if we partner with them. So in a way, and being super transparent here, corporate venture funds, in most cases, is a sales enablement tool for the company. So for founders, it's super important to understand, do they actually need this technology? Does it help you scale? We hope it does. And over the couple of years, we've supported numerous founders in different sectors. I would say therapeutics is something that we don't touch, but anything in digital health where there is a need for interoperability falls under our realm. So yeah, in terms of the founders, again, as I said, InterSystems is maybe considered being under the radar. So for us, it is also brand awareness, right? So yeah, it is those things.
Thank you. And founders, you can agree or disagree. So Avi, I'll let you take that. From the founder side, what do you think has been the most helpful or challenging when communicating the scientific and data side to investors? Avi, for you.
Sorry. My instinctive reaction, even now, I want to talk about the nitty-gritty details. Even in your first question that you mentioned, I want to talk about the tools and things. So I think there's a friend of mine and an Oxford PhD student here. The new batch is really different, but I feel like a PhD almost disassembles you to become an entrepreneur. And so I remember, I remember the first pitch, which was for the gene therapy company, and I think within about 35 seconds, I had lost everybody in the room, and it was to show. You have just got your newly minted PhD, you are the domain expert in that topic, and you want to show off that like what you're doing is revolutionary and amazing, and you completely forget that they are there to see the market opportunity. They are there to see the bigger story. So what you have just done, basically in terms of a Hollywood movie, you have just zoomed in on your favorite scene, and it's a very emotional scene. They have no context, they have no understanding. So I would say, in a very simplified way, show the trailer first, which is that in the case of, for example, the digital twin, telling the VCs that instead of putting a drug in you, instead of trying a supplement regime on you, instead of Brian Johnsoning you, we can try something in your digital twin, in your digital simulacrum 10,000 times and make it work. And so that it's optimized for you and your physiology and your anatomy. That is a kind of a trailer. And then you can go into the details. When you're doing the pitches, when you're doing these things, the technical know-how and the technical knowledge and the technical background and the technical sophistication of your tool or your algorithm is granted. But you need to showcase what your tool can actually do. How can it build this billion-dollar market? What can it actually provide as value to how many people in the real world? So you need to kind of open with that, and that was lessons hard learned. I don't know. I can't be sure that I have learned it yet because the technology for all of us scientists and clinicians kind of is very exciting. So, but the takeaway really is start with the trailer for the blockbuster rather than just going in.
All right, thank you, super helpful. Let's move on to deployment and adoption challenges. Now, we've all heard a little bit in healthcare about last mile problem, and Lluna, I'm sure this is something you can relate to. How can startups overcome the last mile problem of getting AI adopted in hospitals or clinics or healthcare systems?
That's a very good question. I would say the last mile problem is something that me as an entrepreneur, as a co-founder of a startup, I would embrace from the very beginning. So I think the last mile problem is something that needs to be taken into account the moment we're setting out the business, the moment we're thinking about the strategy, how we're going to do, what are we going to do, and how we're going to get there. So, so I would say it's part of the landscape analysis that is done before. It's part of the core of the business, and it has to be taken on board, analyzed, and decided what to do and how to tackle it. So I think it's something that needs to be embedded within the business itself and the idea. Yeah.
Okay. And Avi, what have you seen as key success factors when deploying AI in real-world medical or longevity applications?
It's, again, surprising. Again, lessons hard learned. The success or failure of, at least to my best knowledge, of your AI tool or deployment of that tool has nothing to do with accuracy, which is surprising. Why do you study hard sciences if it's not that? It's actually empathy, which is quite surprising. There's an example of Duke University's rollout of sepsis detection AI. And I think if my numbers they're directionally accurate, which is that around 70% of the calls that it made for sepsis were accurate, but also predominantly ignored. So there was no thinking about when the doctor is in their 11th hour of their 12-hour shift, what does another ping on their dashboard mean? Like, what is the context? How do they reference that? It's just another piece of noise. So if you don't have the context, if you're not delivering it in a way that, imagine a human assistant would come there and deliver it to them, that tool doesn't get used. That tool doesn't get deployed. It can be fantastic, but it just doesn't do that. But all of us technologists and all of us data-driven people look at beating accuracy. Every time, even now, when you see big generative AI companies that are consumer-facing companies, they show benchmarks. It means nothing to anybody. So the empathy element, especially in clinical use, is absolutely needed. Dr. Babu rightly pointed out, you need to be invisible first. Absolutely. Like, if you have another checkbox or another thing and another pop-up and another thing that the doctor or the nurses have to go through, well, that's not happening. And then you need to be context-oriented. You need to provide them with valuable insights so that they can actually trust you, trust what you are actually providing. You pointed this out about the not just the Kaiser Permanente, but others, the Scribe deployment. Sometimes they're just made up stuff that was not there. How do you build trust with the doctor when you're not human, when you are a machine giving? So I think that is the biggest lesson learned, is that you have to design the full stack. And the full stack means accuracy, absolutely, sure, but human. Like, it has to be designed for human processes. Apple does this, at least used to, do it really well. And that is something that all of us have to take on board, is that human first, and then you can add on those stacks, and it has to be a gradual process.
Thank you. That actually makes a lot of sense, I think, both from Lluna and Avi. And Mariam, basically from your enterprise and CVC view, and you can agree and disagree, of course, what helps a startup actually get adopted by big health systems? Do you agree with the founders? Do you have a different take from a CVC side of things?
I was going to talk about workflow nodes, but I think you covered it very, very well. Sort of, we have to build for invisibility. So essentially, the last mile problem could be technical, could be behavioral, could be commercial. So you spoke about behavioral obstacles, that essentially, why would a clinician log into yet another platform when they are operating 5 systems? It's not convenience. The technical challenge here is interoperability, and again, this is something that startups come to us. Integrating into one EHR manually is plausible and perfectly works when you are working with multiple EHRs. That's when it can become more cost efficient and compliant and easy when you have the interoperability engine. But the commercial side of things is underestimating the importance of building relationships with decision makers, and that's something that was touched upon in the previous panel. It's essentially no matter how perfect your solution is, and if you have ROI that you can prove, not fitting into the procurement process will not get you anywhere. I was recently speaking with a founder who managed to integrate his solution into the NHS. In the end, they secured a 1 million plus procurement contract through CBRI, but that took 2 years. And that was only one ICB. The process was not paralleled, or was paralleled but unsuccessfully with other NHS trusts. So guess what? He's now going into the yes market, but that's 2 years lost. And the speed here matters. So yeah, understanding whether you're fitting into the budget, what are those layers that you need to go through, and working on the sales pipeline. And we know that the sales cycle is between 6 to 9, sometimes even more months. So that needs to be taken into account, and that is to Luna's point that it needs to be thought about right from the beginning.
Thank you, all three. Now let's move on to regulations and risks. Founders that build in health tech and deep tech know that none of this comes without regulation, explainability, or data compliance. Lluna, how should founders think about regulation, explainability, and patient data compliance?
I think it's the same for me as the last mile problem. I think it's something that has to be taken into account early. How we're going to deploy our business, how we're going to deploy our product, how we're going to make people use it, just as the clinician or prescription. So I think, and that adds, going through the regulatory, going through compliance, going through all of the loops, the needed loops. These are a stage gauge for quality as well. So I think it adds to the credibility of the business. It adds as well to the credibility for the end users as well. So, so it's not just the business; it's for everyone else, even investment-wise. So I think it makes everyone come together, and it's something that we have to foresee. We have to actually identify those risks, because if we don't know what's coming ahead, we can't really be prepared for that. So I would say identify and work with people close by as well. So at Vector, what we do is we have, on the regulatory side, we have on the ECMC, on the quality, on the preclinical, we're working closely with SME experts. So, and we need, obviously, we're developing first-in-class drug delivery platforms, so we don't know what's coming, but we need the experts on our side from the very, very beginning, because that contributes to the credibility of the business or the product. And in the end, we're dealing here with doctors, but patients as well. So we want to have a positive impact in the life of patients.
Amazing, thank you. And to you, Mariam, how do regulatory frameworks and compliance readiness influence partnerships or investment decisions for you, the CVCs in general?
Having compliance in place, or the plan for that, if you're really early, makes the purchasing decision more comfortable. So I don't think that it is a competitive advantage. It's a must-have. Well, if you're a deep tech or a med tech company and you're very early, of course, having this planned out is a competitive advantage because you're years from commercialization. But if you're building in digital health, that's something that, again, you need to settle in advance. So for the founders that we're working with, and again, that's due to the nature of the CVC and in relation to InterSystems, the technology makes your processes compliant and allows you to work with all the different health standards. And that is why there was a strategic decision to support companies from pre-seed to late seed stage, because they can use it for the back end and they can hopefully save some time for themselves. But again, it's just something that can be bottleneck and that can delay the decision for CIOs for about 6 months or so.
Okay, thank you so much. And to wrap this up, let's speak a little bit about the future and lessons learned and how we can go forward. Avi, which untapped potential should AI address in the future? I know this is a broad one, it's a big one, but feel free to go out.
No, I mean, this is the whole reason why I'm so excited, having been in the field for a long time. So when I started my PhD, I thought we could solve longevity within 10 years. But yeah, no, I mean, really, there has been, like, from protein folding all the way to what we are seeing now, it's been quite fantastic. But to answer your question specifically, the thing that excites me about the future is a perennial problem with medicine. It's a 2,000-plus-year-old problem. Now imagine you're a 50-year-old. You have Bupa insurance, you have Vitality, whatever. Or just have your NHS. You go get your blood checked, or some other analysis, and your GP or your doctor says you look fine. What does that actually mean? You're being compared to other 50-year-olds. You're not fine. As a longevity cell biologist, you are not like you used to be. You know that. I know that. Everybody didn't, like, you're not your 25-year-old self, but you're not being longitudinally compared to yourself. You're being compared to the average. For 2,000 years plus, medicine has been the law of averages. Average drug should work, dose. Average treatment, average prescriptions for lifestyle. Average, average, average. I hope that is changing with machine learning, with generative AI and other forms of AI. We, instead of looking at averages, look at the symphony of you. That is the whole hope with which not just me, but many other people are building these digital twin infrastructures, concierge clinics and others, is the idea that we can now track hundreds and thousands of biomarkers from genome all the way to proteome, metabolome, continuous tracking markers, and hopefully that will help us zoom in. We do not have the therapeutics yet that can be optimized for that, but we are getting there. And we can use combinatorial things. Again, the bandwidth for any clinician, or even if you have a multidisciplinary team of clinicians, is very limited compared to what we can do in the future. So I'm hoping that the law of averages is going to slow down, and hopefully it'll be the symphony of you, if that's one takeaway. But the problem that I also want people to remember is that in our practice and in other people's practice, everybody has heard of deep research. So let's just say that you take all of the data from your clients and dump it into all the large language models and all of the Google Ultras and Gemini Ultras and do the deep research to find perfect solutions for your client. And it turns out that the perfect solution exists in Tokyo and possibly in the Bahamas. And you can try those things out. Guess what? Now you've done these deep research in 30 minutes. Now you get on fax machines to fax hospital systems. I mean, pagers are still used in US hospitals. So the thing is that we need to remember that certain things are working out super fast, and then the human layers, wherever those things are interacting with the human layers, are extremely slow, archaic, and hugely problematic. Getting your client, if they happen to be traveling to Spain or somewhere else, getting them a CT angiogram in different jurisdiction requires very different level of prescriptions. So one thing is moving amazingly fast, so we can play the symphony of you, we can find out exactly what you need to do, but then the implementation, where the rubber meets the road, is extremely slow, and I'm hoping that over the next decade, we're going to see amazing companies that are going to take advantage of the lack of geography, so to speak, and accelerate this healthcare in order to do, like, not just analyze you, but able to be prescriptive and able to find solutions all over the world.
Thank you, Avi. That's very helpful. Lluna, as a founder yourself, so going a little bit more on the reflective lens, which difficulties did you not anticipate on your journey developing AI, and what advice would you give to your fellow entrepreneurs?
Okay, let me provide a little bit of background because Vector Bioscience is a spin-out from the University of Cambridge. So we've we've been very, very lucky to be able to cherry pick exactly the features, exactly whatever we wanted to then commercialize from the research that was being done at the university from our CSO, Professor Fairen Jimenez. So in the case of AI and machine learning, we use machine learning. That was also incorporated in the discussion. What are we going to do with vector? And machine learning was part of that conversation as well. But now when it came to how we're going to use it, how we're going to exactly use machine learning for vector in the commercialization of our platform technology, it was for the selection of the nanomaterials, so the different components of our vehicles, of our nano shuttles. And then, so that was established, that came as part of the commercial plan. And then the more than, what word did you use? Was it problem or enforcing? Yeah.
Like difficulties.
Difficulties. So I would say that what we did with this was challenge it. We questioned, okay, what are we doing with machine learning? What extra can we do? What else can we do with machine learning, right? So we are going to expand the scope of the machine learning that we're using at the moment, and not just for the selection of the nanomaterials and the different components of the vehicles, but we're questioning, can we use it for the manufacturability of our nano shuttles? Can we use it for the scale up? And how can we implement that? So I would say, so we're expanding the reach of the machine learning that we're using. And how can we do that? That taps onto the second part of the question, which is something, so an advice that I would give to another fellow entrepreneur. So the key question, how can we do this new use of the machine learning at Vector, is because of our team. And this is something that can easily be overseen and overlooked by founders. Like, you just focus on the business, focus on the project, on the product, focusing on just running and getting to the next milestone. And so that is an advice that I would say: look at your team, look after your team. Because thanks to our team, in our case at Vector, we're able to expand the reach of the machine learning that we're doing.
Super helpful. Thank you, Lluna.
Thank you.
And before we jump to Q&A real quick, Mariam, if you could give one piece of advice to founders approaching health partners and investors like yourself, what would it be?
I would say don't overuse the word partnership. Just to give an example, so InterSystems has its own EHR. It's called TrackCare, and it has vast presence in the NHS. We have another version of the EHR in Telecare, which is sort of more smart, AI-enabled EHR. And it is too often that founders come to our CVC and they say, okay, so we're going to be integrated into EHR, and more hospitals will get access to our solution. Easy enough, but that's not how the partnership works. The claim here is that, yes, for example, our solution will also get smarter and better, but how and how it's going to happen, it's really unclear to us, and it's not something that you open the discussion with, because when the partnership means that we both sides get something in return. And I think that is the mistake that I unfortunately have seen too often, although it's quite recent that I actually joined the corporate venture fund. So it is something that I see is definitely being misused. And if founders are selling this solution like this to other partners, not only CVCs but hospitals, I don't think it's going to go any further, to be honest.
All right. Thank you so much, Lluna, Avi, and Mariam, for your very valuable and informative insights. We're now opening the floor to questions from the audience. If anyone has any questions, yes, please.
Hi, it's a question to Avi. I loved your analogies, with GPS, zooming on the climax, all the cinematic context. My question is, I read the study on the septic shock. Using ML machine learning to predict septic shock. Those cases were, really narrow, focused clinical scenarios using AI. But what you're talking about is using the symphony of you, which is using data from genomics, epigenomics, which is a very dynamic data set, metabolomes, proteomes, the whole vast array of data sets. Do you think we have the computing prowess, capability to, come to that kind of a precision medicine realm? I mean, what do you think? I mean, I know quantum is out there, but they reckon quantum is more for crypto and other things not really suited for healthcare. I mean, what's your take on that?
Thank you for the question. I'll pass on your compliments to Claude and ChatGPT for those analogies. Those are the ones who came up with those analogies. I was just repeating them. But what I was trying. So better people than me, significantly better, Nobel Prize winners Demis Hassabis has pointed out, again, I'm a cell biologist by training a long time ago, that the entire modeling of a cell should be possible and feasible within the next 5 years. Dario Amodei from Claude and Anthropic has pointed out entire disease management is possible. I am not sure, but honestly, getting a DPhil in 2014, I would have never, in a small way, I was some kind of a domain expert in that time, right? And I would have never predicted, and none of my professors at Oxford would have predicted that we would have solved, quote unquote, solved protein folding in 2020. So I'm not taking any more bets again. So to answer your question, European Union, and we have discussed how risk averse is the European climate. They're doing a virtual digital twin simulation. They're trying to bring that up to speed and do that. They're not the only people doing digital twin. Oracle is also trying to do that. So the computation capacity of what, and by the way, standard computers or conventional computers keep surprising you, because again, we used to think in the 2010s and even before that we would need quantum computation in order to do protein folding. But no, a classical computer seems to have done that. So again, it's a philosophical question. We only have systems right now in our digital twin system. We have like cardiac system or renal system, a little bit of a few other systems that are kind of digital twinning, and everything else is a little bit of an extrapolation. Nobody else, I'm not talking about myself, but nobody else in the world is that far ahead, but it is seemingly doable and possible. It's not an impossible thing. The data certainly can be amalgamated. What we have seen is at least drugs that are, or interventions that are, have a significant amount of data behind it, as in things like beta blockers and other categories of drugs. When we have pharmacodynamics data, pharmacogenomics data, when we have proteomic data from the clients and things, we can actually titrate that very well. So it's a piecemeal digital twin, but the exponential curve looks like it's not doing anything right up until the end, and then it does everything at the same. So again, I'm not betting against anything, and I'm super optimistic because I mean, otherwise, what would we be doing? So I'm hoping that that is true, but I do not have any fundamental knowledge that I can tell you.
Are there any more questions? I think, if not, I think we have time for one more question, and then.
Hi, thanks so much for your insights. Just on the points about compliance and risk, I really like that view, because I think going in with sort of your guardrails in place is really important for seed funding. Given the sort of synergies of various sort of sectors coming together, this market is still yet to be deeply regulated. What are the two, I guess perhaps this is a question for Mariam, what are the two things that you're seeing that VCs or early startups are doing well? Is it investing in the compliance and risk framework, or B, sort of having the right people on board to sort of guide them through that journey? Thank you.
I guess it depends on who are the founders and what's their expertise, because having someone on the advisory board that can help you manage that and dedicate 2 hours of their time per month, that could be sufficient. But let's say you have a CEO who comes from the commercial side, pharma, biotech, and the CDO who's building, but none of them really understand the compliance that well. If I understand your question correctly, sort of what would be the best approach on how to invest money or equity, I would say you should always invest money and not equity, because you can have the advisor in the terms of giving them 1%, which is crazy. Because if you don't believe in sort of your company represents your equity, and therefore if you can buy necessary services with money, you would do that. I wouldn't rely on the support of accelerators with your compliance, because it requires really sort of deep dive into what could be the plan. There are agencies that help with that. Feedback that I get from founders, especially at pre-seed, is that it can be extremely expensive and also slow. So again, ideally, you would want to find that from your network. Does that answer your question, more or less?
All right, okay. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, panelists, as well. And I think now would be a time for the short break. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, guys.